Have you ever walked into a room carrying the weight of a terrible day, not saying a word about it, keeping your face as neutral as you could manage, doing everything right on the outside? And the baby in that room, who moments ago was perfectly calm, suddenly becomes restless or clingy or begins to cry for no reason anyone can see, as if something invisible passed between you and reached them before you even crossed the room. That is not a coincidence, and it is not the baby being difficult, and it is most certainly not your imagination. Because what that baby just did is one of the most sophisticated and scientifically documented feats of human perception that exists, and the fact that it happens in someone who cannot yet speak, cannot yet walk, cannot yet understand a single sentence should stop all of us cold and make us ask a question we have never asked seriously enough. What exactly is a baby reading when it reads you? The answer begins in the body, not the mind, and it starts before the baby is even born. Research has shown that as early as the 3rd trimester, a fetus responds measurably to the emotional state of its mother. Not because it can think about what she is feeling, but because the body tells the truth even when the face does not. When a mother is under stress, her body releases cortisol, the stress hormone, and that cortisol crosses the placenta and reaches the baby directly. The baby's heart rate shifts, its movements change, it responds not to the idea of stress, but to the chemical reality of it, the raw biological signal that something in the environment has changed and that this matters. And so from before birth, the baby is already being trained, not in any deliberate way, not by anyone's choice, to treat the body of the person it depends on as its most important source of information about the world. That training does not stop at birth, it deepens. Within hours of being born, a newborn can already distinguish its own mother's smell from any other smell in the room. Within days, it responds differently to familiar voices than to unfamiliar ones. Within weeks, it is watching faces with an intensity that researchers have described as almost forensic, tracking the movement of eyes and mouths and brows with a focus that most adults never bring to anything. And what the baby is doing with all of that watching, all of that listening, all of that smelling and feeling and tracking is building a model, a constantly updating emotional map of the people it depends on, so that it always knows, without having to ask whether the environment is safe or whether something has shifted. Now here is the first twist, and it is one that changes the way you think about even the most ordinary moments. Psychologists have a term called social referencing, and it describes something babies begin doing as young as 8 to 10 months old. Something so natural and so constant that the people around them rarely notice it is happening. When a baby encounters something new or uncertain, a stranger walking in, an unfamiliar toy, a loud sound from the next room, it does not just react. First, it looks at you. It checks your face for information. It reads your expression, your body posture, the quality of your attention, and it uses what it finds there to decide how it should feel about the thing it just encountered. If you look relaxed and warm, the baby moves toward the new thing. If there is even a flicker of anxiety or alarm in your face, the baby pulls back, even if you said nothing, even if the new thing was completely harmless. A baby is not just sensing your mood in some vague and general way. It is using your emotional state as a navigation tool, reading you the way a sailor reads the sky, looking for signals that will tell it whether what lies ahead is safe to approach or wise to avoid. And this happens dozens of times a day, mostly without anyone noticing, because the glance is so fast and the response so immediate that it looks like the baby is simply reacting to the world around it, when in truth, it is reacting to your reaction to the world around it. The world, for a baby, is partially made of what you feel about it. Here is the second twist, and this one lands differently. Quieter, more personal, and, in some ways, more demanding. Scientists studying emotional attunement between babies and caregivers have found that the synchrony goes both ways. Not only does a baby sense and respond to a caregiver's emotional state, the caregiver's nervous system also responds at a biological level to the baby's. When a baby is calm and content, the hormones of the person holding it tend to settle. When a baby is distressed, the caregiver's stress response activates. The two nervous systems are in constant silent conversation, a loop of mutual regulation that neither party is consciously directing, running beneath the level of thought or intention, older and faster than any language either of them has. What this means, in the most human terms possible, is that you and a baby in the same room are already affecting each other in ways you cannot see or choose. Your stress is not staying inside you. Your calm is not staying inside you. The distance between your emotional state and the baby's is shorter and more porous than any wall. And the traffic moves in both directions, constantly and without pause. And think about what this asks of us. Not as a source of guilt, because no one can be calm every moment, and babies are resilient and forgiving in ways that research also confirms, but as an invitation to something. An invitation to take your own emotional state seriously, not just for your sake, but because there is someone nearby who is using it to understand the world. Someone who has no other way of knowing whether this moment is safe. Someone for whom your nervous system is, in the most literal sense, a teacher. You are always communicating with a baby, even in silence, even in stillness, even when you believe you are invisible behind a neutral face. The baby is always reading, always learning, always translating what it finds in you into its own understanding of what the world is and whether the world can be trusted. And perhaps that is the most profound thing of all. Not that babies are surprisingly perceptive, though they are, but that they remind us how deeply we were always connected to each other, how much of what we carry moves between us without permission or announcement, how much of what it means to love someone is simply the quality of presence we bring when we walk into the room. If this made you feel something you needed to feel, share it with someone you love. Because some truths are better held together. Subscribe for more Mind Secrets.